Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sitdown, the modern master of horror, as I like to call him. Mr. James Wan is back in the realm that he belongs. That is, of course, the realm of horror. And oh man, do I love me a James Wan horror movie, and man, specifically, do I love the first time James Wan cracks into a horror story. I love when he gives us something new. That first Saw, one of the best crime thrillers I've ever seen in my life. And the blending of the horror elements in that movie, too, just worked so well. The first Insidious gave me nightmares. And the first Conjuring is one of my all-time favorite horror movies. And while he didn't direct any of the other Saws, he did direct the second Insidious and the second Conjuring. Both very, very good. But those first ones, first time we dive into something new and fresh with Wan, man, it's always something special. And while this movie I don't think is going to work for everyone, because Wan and his team take some pretty big swings, the things that it connects on, there's something special. What are we talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat, we're getting ready to dive in, spoiler-free, into Malignant. And I'm going to be talking about James Wan quite a bit in this review. So I am going to start with the cast, but first we're going to hit the synopsis. And this is a movie that follows Madison Mitchell, who's played by Annabelle Wallis. She played the mother in the original Annabelle, so an alum from the world of James Wan's horror. And we follow her as she starts to get these visions of really brutal murders that are actually happening in the real world, and how she gets pulled into the crime investigation, and how this all ties into her personal story is a mystery that has to be unfolded as we watch. And this is going to be, it could be tough to talk, because there are certainly big-time spoilers in this movie, and we're going to try to avoid all of them. But like I said, before we dive into the movie, and specifically all the wonderful things Wan does, we have to start with the cast, because I'm going to talk about Wan for a while. But like I said, he brings back Wallis here, and she has to carry this movie. While there is a large cast around her, this one really rides on her shoulders and the shoulders of our villain. We'll just say our villain. You don't know what the villain is, but you know that villain named Gabriel. We know his name from the trailers. And Madison, they carry the whole film, and specifically the connection that they have. While there is so much mystery as to why Gabriel seems to be targeting Annabelle, that just connection between those two characters is really what has to carry the movie. And Wallis, for the most part, does a phenomenal job. I mean, man, does she make you feel for her at times. I mean, especially as we see certain elements of her story. And she really plays crazy well. I mean, this is one of those things where the stuff that she's seeing, and the fact that she's not physically at these places, really starts to mess with her mind. And as the investigation unfolds, she kind of starts to lose it a little bit. And Wallis really nails that stuff. I mean, just look at the eye, man. She got the crazy eye down. And some of the makeup work at the end of the movie, just to her look, like really amp that crazy vibe. And it's one of those things that makes you feel for her. Now, not everything she does hits. I mean, there's, like, toward the end, like, there's a moment between her and her sister that's really kind of cheesy. But like I said, for the most part, I think she does a good job carrying this thing. Her sister, Sydney, played by Maddie Hasson, is my personal standout from the movie. Every time Hasson is on screen, I think she steals the scene. I really thoroughly enjoyed her, and you just feel that commitment and that willingness to do anything for a sister that she truly loves. Is just something that exudes out of Hasson's performance. And outside of those two, and like I said, Gabriel, I'm not going to say anything about Gabriel. We'll talk a little bit about him from a concept side, but that character, just say, I loved everything about Gabriel and what was going on with that performance, and just how whatever he, she, I don't know what it is, I don't want to spoil it, but whatever it is, how it functions in the movie, man, dude, it hits. But outside of those three, like I said, it's a pretty hefty cast here. But George Young and Michelle Brianna White, who play detectives Kakoa Shaw and Regina Moss, they're in the movie predominantly the most after Hasson. And they do a good job, I like them as a team. White is clearly the veteran in this, partnership. And the way that she directs and takes command of a scene, I really enjoyed, and specifically the interactions that she has with young Shaw. You can just tell the vibe and how and why they work well together, but how she don't really play. You know what I mean? And Young, I don't want to say he's pensive, but he is certainly more subdued, quieter compared to, Regina. And he does that really well, and it works for the type of detective that he is. However, when he flips into cop mode, that really works. He has a chase sequence that cop switch flips, and you were like, all right, I'm here for you, Young, and I enjoyed both of them, and specifically White too. There's not much levity and fun and happiness in this movie, so White brings a little bit of comedy and cuts some of the tension sometimes when she's on screen, and that's just super enjoyable. And like I said, everybody else that shows up here comes to play. I like how they play into the movie, whether they're the ones being killed or tangentially connected to our characters. You have a solid cast here, and you don't need a stellar standout cast when you have James Wan behind a movie. While certainly when he does have stellar casts and big-time names, they thrive, but it's not necessary because he's the one that's really carrying this movie. From a story standpoint, it's not just him. He's in on the story with Ingrid Baisu and Akilah Cooper, and Akilah Cooper writes the screenplay here, but from a story standpoint, what Wan builds is a really interesting horror crime drama. He brings in elements of that Saw story and how you go about an investigation and melds it quite well with things that he does from a story standpoint in those haunting kind of conjuring, possessed type movies. And he walks that line of you're not really sure which realm he's going to fully dive into. And the story kind of takes you through some of that. And early, it does kind of play a little bit more cliche and a little bit more campy than the back half of the movie. And while I think that might lose some people early and might not hit every beat of the first and part of the second act, I think that's almost intentional to a degree because it tees up the just absolute insane ride you go on down the back half. And like I said, there's a big mystery here. And as that starts to be revealed and the twists and turns we take in the back half of the movie, it felt like they were just teeing you up to be like, this kind of feels predictable at times. There were certain elements early in the movie that I was like, yeah, okay, I think they're going to go this way. And then even as you're getting toward the end of the movie, you're like, well, there's only a couple ways that they can go here. And, you think you have it all figured out. And then you get into the last hour or so of this flick, and you're just like, I didn't know anything. Nothing I knew. I don't know. The second half, story-wise, really functions and how it all ties together. And as the reveals are happening, it's able to hit you with emotional punches. It's able to hit you with terror, both physical and psychological. I love the psychological element to the script. And overall, that just gave Wan enough to play with where it's maybe not everything's going to work, but because of what he can do behind the camera and how he just elevates the visuals of the material, that's ultimately what is going to make, I think, your audience go, dude, this movie, yes, because it's original and it takes big swings. And while it might not connect for everybody, I certainly really appreciate when you take a big swing and you try to do something different. And I promise you, while you might feel like this movie is predictable at times, you've never seen a movie quite like Malignant. And so much of that has to do with what Wan does behind the camera. And he brings his style to it. And one of the things I love the most about James Wan is how he plays with black, dark, negative space. To the point that when he's producing, specifically something like Michael Chaves' Conjuring 3, that is part of a series that has a very distinct visual style. And the one thing in that movie that I thought Chaves really nailed, and you could tell was definitely mostly influenced by Wan, was how they played with negative space. And how they do it here just allows Wan to create these really interesting tricks, and the way that he's able to blend both practical and visual, digital effects allows him to really kind of play with stuff in that negative space. And the way that Gabriel is designed, the character design on Gabriel is brilliant because he is pretty much just black, and he's got this long creepy hair and this big black trench coat and gloves, and he's able to blend in and disappear into the background so easily that there are times where Every time you see negative space, whether it's a closet, whether it's a hallway, whether it's the corner of a room, you're on edge because you don't know where this guy can jump out of from. And not even just the dark negative space, but some of the camera tricks he pulls with your eye. Like, am I seeing something? Am I not? There's a moment where Maddie is looking out a window and you get a very Conjuring vibe as fog kind of rolls in. And the way the fog is rolling in, you're like, is there something there? Is there something? And like, really good stuff, man. Like, that whole bit, like, if you're paying attention, the way he paints it is just, it's masterful. And there's one other sequence that kind of does that as well, where, like, it has something to do with a curtain. You're going to see a curtain, you're going to see it flap. And just the way it plays, I was like, wow, man, like, I'm going to do a spoiler review because I want to talk about the end of this movie. And I have all my reactions. I didn't go to the theater for this one. I watched it here because it's on HBO Max. And I recorded everything. And you'll see, like, there are moments where I'm just like, man, damn, that's awesome. Like, that was a cool trick. Like, how'd that work? And those visuals just keep you off balance. But like I said, he brings something different with Malignant. And it feels like it's a combination of a lot of things. Like I said, you get vibes from the detective side of things that feel kind of like Saw. And some of the violence, while it's not, you're not getting any Saw traps, some of the physical violence and gore that you get in the movie kind of feels like it comes from that place. Some of that psychological and haunting type terror. Like, Madison's character feels like she's kind of haunted, and that was kind of one of the physical aspects of her performance that I really liked. And when he plays with those, whether, I mean, like I said, you don't know what Gabriel is. And the way that he plays with that stuff, you know, it hits those Conjuring and Insidious vibes. Like, I really dug that. But something that I haven't really seen him do before, and trust me, dude knows how to stage a horror sequence. I mean, you watch how he stages anything. It's always the most impressive thing is his set pieces and how big and the scale and size of them are. But he brought not only the scale of some of the big movies, like when he's worked on the Fast and Furious franchise or with DC and Aquaman, like, while he brings some of that large scale to some of the sequences, you get action in this movie. I mean, there is a chase sequence, like I said, that features Detective Shaw that's stellar, and there is a scene that happens in the police station that's just mind-blowing. I mean, Gabriel, mild spoiler, is obviously involved in this sequence, and just, like I said, from a character design and how Gabriel moves and functions, you get like a really well choreographed sequence that's definitely blended with visual effects, because some of the ways in which Gabriel moves are definitely beyond natural. Like, you know, you can do things with a human's body that, like, yeah, you can have a person, but there are some things you can't do. And some of his movements definitely are VFX, but it blends so well that you just sit there and you're just like, I'm in awe. I am in awe. And it is like action level, high caliber, like choreography and just camera movement, and the whole sequence is just mind blowing. And I've never seen anything like that in a horror movie. And just like I said, like what he brings from style and how he's able to blend all these different things that he does together into something that feels new and feels fresh. And like I said, with the swings they take with the story, it just allows Juan to just have an absolute blast behind the camera, start to finish with this thing. And for me, that's what really makes this movie work. And specifically the back half of the flick. Like, man, is it just like a stellar knockout that will have you on the edge of your seat, that will make you jump, that will make you just be like, I don't know what's going on. And then there are things that I've been disturbed by Juan many times, you know, but I've never seen anything quite like what he gives us at the end of this movie. And as we get into the reveals and the answers to the story, that sequence, when everything starts to be revealed, dude, and like, there's things that I will never unsee from this movie, and I love James Wan for all that stuff. So I'm a big fan of Malignant. Like I said, I don't think this is going to hit for everybody. You've already seen some reviewers kind of bash it for being kind of corny and cheesy, and it feels more like a joke than a serious movie. Like, I saw one person say, like, if you would have leaned in kind of like Sam Raimi would to like the comedic elements of things, you might like be laughing with the movie more than you're laughing at it. And like I said, I understand that, because the first half of the movie sets itself up, I think, purposely to feel like that, so that it catches you off guard on the back end. And considering how big the swings are in the back end, I get why that might not hit and might feel kind of silly. But I'm telling you, man. Like, I think if you're a James Wan fan, if you're a fan of the way he does horror, this is so worth the watch, and hopefully it'll be something that hits for the audience. You know, the audience scores haven't started to populate anywhere, but I'm hoping that people gravitate towards this thing, because I think this thing has got some really special stuff, and so much of that has to do with Wan. And one other thing that we didn't really talk about is the way he stages his scenes and his set pieces. And like, I didn't know about the Seattle Underground, but he plays in there. The movie's set in Seattle. Man, he builds some creepy, just like you nothing even needs to happen. You just walk into like some of these places and you're just like, oh man. But the big win from the set piece standpoint has got to be the house. We get an exterior shot many times, but I think it's pretty obvious that they built out this house, because there is a sequence that is shot overhead, and the way that the house is structured, it allows Wan to simultaneously show things happening on the first and the second floors, and it's Maddie kind of moving through the house. Mind-blowing stuff. And that's the stuff that really makes things like this work and make things like this special and worth going to see, because man, he always finds something behind the camera that just makes you go, wow, I didn't see that coming. So that's it, man. I'm gonna stop talking, because if I say any more, I'm gonna spoil the movie, and I don't want to spoil this one for you guys. So let's get the C-Maniacs up. There they are. Let's give it a score. Like I said, you have a solid cast here. While I don't think there's any huge standout, everybody does quality work, and I think Annabelle Wallis does a good job, carrying the movie. And for me personally, Maddie Hasson was a pretty big standout. When it comes to the script, first half isn't trying to hit real hard, and you might feel like it's predictable, but I think some of that is built in intentionally to keep us nowhere near where we go the back half. And like I said, from just Maddie's story and where it goes and how it all unfolds, it just really works for me on the backside. And then what Wan can do behind the camera, from staging a sequence and bringing this vibe of different movie styles into something that becomes super original and unique and not something that you've seen before. It just really worked, and I will go to my grave defending and loving everything that James Wan does from a visual standpoint, and this thing is visually stunning all the way through. So for the C-Man, I gotta go 4 out of 5 C-Maniacs. I like this movie a lot. I would even say that I loved this movie. I thoroughly enjoyed my time. I had an absolute ball. But there are moments that are kind of a little wonky here and there. And like I said, he takes some big swings. And the fact that I know it won't hit for everybody, 4 out of 5. Rock solid from James Wan, and something that I think you should be very excited about if you were a James Wan fan. So that's all I gotta say, man. I ain't trying to ruin this movie for you guys. Now it's your turn. What'd you think, man? If you've seen Malignant, did you watch it at home? Did you watch it in a theater? If you haven't seen it, where are you gonna go see it? But if you saw the movie, did it work for you? Like I said, there's some big swings in this movie. Did those hit? Did those not hit? If they didn't hit, how does that make you look at the movie? If they did, how does that make you look at the movie? I think depending on what works and not works for people, you're going to have people that kind of feel like it's silly, and people that are like, dude, wow. So I want to know where you fall. Don't spoil anything, but kind of hint at the things that you really dug maybe that Wan did, or things that just didn't work. And if you haven't seen the movie, have we enticed you to want to go see it? Is this in your plans? Are you going to check it out? Anything you got, man, good, bad, indifferent on Malignant, goes down below in the comments section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the C-Man, anytime we're talking movies, TV, trailer reactions, you want to see my reactions and my spoiler thoughts on Malignant, you just dig what I'm doing. Maybe you stumbled across it and you're like, man, I like this guy's energy. I like what he's got going on. You want to show a little love and respect, a little appreciation to the old C-Man? Well, hey, come join C-Maniac Nation by jumping over there, hitting that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts. And until next time, for the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down, I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace. Oh, hey, what's going on? You must be sticking around because you're looking for more content featuring this guy. Well, guess what? You're in the right place. You can check out more videos right here and right here. And if you have and you want to come join that C-Maniac Nation, you can hit that subscribe right over there.